We have seen in the recent years a great development of EPDs, and especially in the construction sector. And it's been driven both by stakeholder demands, but also from different type of certification and so on. But now we also start to see more and more legal demands on how to make your EPDs. So how would you expect EPD regulations to evolve in the coming years?
I think we can split the question also into two different parts. To say, okay, you have the EPD. An EPD is a voluntary framework. You create what you refer to as a Type 3 declaration, which means that it's actually owned by someone else, it's verified, and so on. There is some criteria to call it a Type 3 declaration. And inside this framework, you need to realize that it consists of EPD platforms. So the EPD platform will be the one where you publish the EPD. The EPD platforms have GPIs, that is the Global Product Instruction or General Product Instructions, which is defining the calculation rules for this platform. Above all of this platform, you have PCRs, that is product category rules. Then there is different levels of PCRs. And everything of this is to harmonize and make comparability between EPDs from the same platform according to the same product groups, you can say. So of course there is the development inside all of these different small frameworks regarding this. And this is really, really hard and complex to keep track of as an EPD practitioner or a company actually creating EPDs on a specific platform for a specific product group. So here we see a lot of development into these different standardizations. But we also see that there is a legalizing requirement, like for example for the construction industry, is talking about the CPR, to say that it will be legally demanded in the CE marking to declare the climate impact of a product. This will be start, I think it's from next year to roll out in Europe. So this is something that comes fairly quick. And we also have for other industries, for example, something that we call for ESBR, Eco Design Directive I was referring to, that is also having some different demands, not only about climate, but climate is a big part of it, also to ensure.
What would be the biggest challenge, do you think, to get this more standardized, to make sure that it's, because when it comes in the legislation, it will also be more and more standardized. So what is the challenge behind that?
The super big corps will manage, but all the SMEs and the medium-sized businesses, they will have a challenge to actually keep up with exactly how you do this. So that's why it's so good to have a framework like, for example, in EPDs, where you actually can select which program operator will you use, which PCR will you use, and someone else is helping you keeping track of the framework and make sure that you actually do the right things.
Another challenge would be for the different companies to produce all of these EPDs or life cycle data. How would you say that EPDs can help in that?
But then we need to look into a little bit about the process, how to make this data today. So if you look at the process of creating this data, it's almost like a project. I mean, you say, okay, you want to do a window. Then you're starting to collect the data. You start to make it into a simulation software to make a model. You're creating the model, you do all the assumptions, you write a report, and then you're done. And then you will get a copy. And this is like a snapshot of the reality. And if you want to update this, then you start a new project. But the same process every single time, so you don't benefit from actually the system approach into it, you can almost say. The benefit by having a software like EPDs, we actually input the data in the software. Software will keep track of what you did last time, with your comments, with your underlying documentation, with your calculation at that point, variation handling it, and everything else that. So it's actually support to you as both and as a practitioner, but also as a company, to have in a systematic way track your environmental impact, so you can actually make changes really easy within the different things within your data. This is also make it, for example, when the program operator is updating the PCR, the GPI, some new regulation comes up into the market. If you have your data layer in a systematic controlled way, then you actually can utilize this data to comply with the demand for tomorrow that we don't even know exists today.
And if you're a company and you have the EPDs, like a software like this, what else can you use the software for?
Yeah, but you can do it from different aspects. I mean, first of all, we will say the most important thing we think for most companies that have not started this journey yet is to actually establish a baseline. So you import your products, you make your calculations, and then you will get how good are you, almost you can say. After you have done this, you can say, okay, you can find optimizations. So as EPDs can help you to find hotspots, and also to see how different solutions would mitigate these hotspots. You can then use the data to create different type of documentation, like for example an EPD, CSRD, CBAM, ESPR. I mean, it doesn't really matter what type of documentation you need when you're speaking about environmental impact. You can utilize the data in your data layer from EPDs to get a result for that. So both from, like, if you say R&D to find up eco-innovations, but also like a communication tool to your customers.
So a software like this would be more like something that the companies actually will work on in a more regular way?
Yeah, that we have the possibility to do.
Yeah.
So I mean, you can also make an EPD if that is your customer demand. Then you go into the tool, you upload your data, you make an EPD. But I mean, I think there is no company today that can safe to say that an EPD will be the only thing that you need tomorrow. So by utilizing a system that actually can scale and help you along the journey, then you don't need to do the work again in another system, in another tool to comply with something else. So you can see it quite much like the tools we have for economics. I mean, in your company, you put your data into a system that keep track of your expenses, of your income, in your, all the things you need. And nevertheless, who is operating it, you have the system as a baseline for your calculations.
And how can EPDs help to prepare for all of this? How will you work to make sure that you follow all the legislation and rules that are coming?
EPDs is a non-expert tool, we can call it. So it's a tool enable many people in the company to work with the sustainability question. Traditionally, you have often appointed one guy or girl to say that this is the sustainability representative in the company. All the questions goes to him or she, and they need to answer up on this. When you're scaling this in a broader perspective, imagine when CSRD is in place, and you need to keep track of all your scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions in a quite granular way, both from legislation perspective, but also from a business perspective. It will not be maintainable to have this forced against this single individual in the businesses. So by utilizing a non-expert tool, then you can actually enable the different people in the different positions in the organization to contribute with their knowledge. I mean, the engineers in the R&D department, they can elaborate on materials. The plant manager can input or the QI persons can input the data regarding waste and energy consumption. The purchasing people, they can work with the supply chain. The salespeople can bring their own documentation to the customers. The financing people can bring up all the underlying information regarding CSRD. So you actually, exactly as all the other supporting system you have in a business, the EPP system of EPDs can actually work as this centralized part to maintain and update your environmental data to always keep on track.
So if you are a company today that stands in front of all of these regulations and demands that are coming from both stakeholders and the market and so on, what advice would you give them?
I think the most important thing is that we always establish a baseline. As we said earlier, it's not super clear what will be the demand tomorrow. But what we safe can say that all the companies, if you have done the calculations, if you have done the first step in the pre-work, then you at least establish a baseline. You will see if you're under, if you're overperforming, if you have any hotspots. Is there anything, simple things that you can do to improve your environmental performance? And that's a quite fairly simple task, I would say, with a software like EPDs to create this baseline. So that will be my recommendation to everyone.